some of the accusations that were leveled at you, you're part of the Taliban, you are leading a Muslim gang in prison. What were the explanations they were giving to you as to reasons why they thought that?
They said they can't divulge it. It's security intel.
So, so they're accusing you of these things, but they can't give you the reasons why or have any evidence behind it.
And I can't explain it.
Wow.
And it was crazy. Even I had a parole hearing, and half my parole hearing I had to leave. I couldn't even hear the information that was being given against me.
What?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly that, my friend. My barrister had to fill out a form saying that if it leaks out, she's liable to be imprisoned herself. This is the levels that these were the levels that they were throwing at me, the accusations. It was horrible.
And looking back now, do you feel, because I would imagine you would have had a reputation in prison, a lot of people that would have respected you throughout prison. Do you feel that they saw that respect and thought, actually, this is someone that if we give them too much of a platform, there could be something that we're not going to like in regards to he may influence others? So do you think your respect in prison and how people treated you in prison was kind of a bit of a negative for you because you were targeted, as we've talked about?
100%. I think we, as human beings as well, we tend to fear what we don't know.
Yeah, fear what we don't understand. Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of that. It was difficult. It was very, very difficult. And now reflecting back, as you're actually conversing with me as well, and I'm looking back of all the kind of trials and tribulations, especially what my wife encountered and everything else as well, it's been very hard. One of the things that was very frightening as well is what they said, which was like the nail in the coffin, when they believed that I radicalized my mum.
What?
So they had me, so as soon as I came out as well, you can ask my wife here as well, they had, and we can produce, with us, we produce evidence as well. So I can show you the long list of conditions that when I first came out. So this is why that it's taken so long for us to do this podcast. I couldn't do any public speaking. I could literally do nothing. When I first came out, I was reporting every about 2 hours. Then every time I report in as well, it's not just signing a signature. I had to stay in the premises for an hour, then 2 hours. It was this, it was hard.
And I even want to take a step back because even before you were released, my brother was, obviously you had conversations with my brother.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. And, even that setting, right? And you can provide the correct terms if I'm mistaken, but if you were in a video call situation, you weren't allowed to move because they felt that you may be sending some sort of signals and then they'll cut the phone. Is that correct?
Okay, I know what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
So when I was on CSE, they would try to
sorry, for those who don't know, what's CSE?
Sorry. The Close Supervision Center.
Okay.
They tried to make life so unbearable for me. So we know that, especially when you're incarcerated as well, one of the things that you look forward to the most is having a visit. So they will do anything to kind of sabotage that as well. So it could be anything. They could say that, well, we never understood that. So what did you mean by that? Oh, that could be a signal. That could be a plan or plot. So so there were so many things, and it made you robotic. So sometimes when people are saying to me as well that, sometimes this is what psychologists said to me as well. I just feel that you're robotic in your approach, and you've got this kind of calm approach, but you're very robotic in how you articulate things. And I said, but you lot condition me to this. I've had to be like this. Because I'll give you an example as well. Since I've actually been out as well, I said that members of the public, if they ever was unfortunate enough to find themselves incarcerated, they'll never be released. Because the psychologists and all the report writers will not give them parole because of how they behave. I know it's a normal thing to question things, but when you're incarcerated as well, they don't want to hear that. If you question them, then you're a rabble rouser. You're making trouble and so forth. So you build up this kind of defense where that you just let things go. Because sometimes even my wife shouts at me as well. She's like, oh, why didn't you challenge that? Or why didn't you do this? But it's because of all those years of incarceration that sometimes it makes you, they've conditioned me to a certain degree where that you just let things go. It's just like, and it's not normal. So then people look at you and think it's strange. Now he's too controlled. Oh, I'm not too sure about him, but not understanding the backdrop of this, that I couldn't. As soon as you express anything, that's another 2 years on your sentence.
How many times in total throughout the 22 years did you, because we need to not forget the point, you was initially given 7 years and you end up doing 22. And there must have been a period where you was going for releases in terms of,
that's correct, yes,
you're doing good behavior. It's a normal thing to go to ask for releases. How many times was you knocked back in terms of being released?
10 times.
10 times. And were they at those times when you were knocked back 10 times, did they give different reasons, or did they give you any explanations at that point? They just said no.
Initially, the first few I understood, because obviously it was too soon. Even though I could say that, okay, I was 2 years in good behavior and so forth. To the average person outside, that's a long time. But in prison terms, they'll consider that as being short.
Considering people in there for 30, 40, so on and so forth.
So I can totally understand when I'm talking about parole. So I've done the 7 and now it's parole time. But there was so many different excuses. So it was like, what they tend to do as well was actually saying that, you need to cover this course, that course. We'll probably recommend that you do therapy. Then when that becomes tiresome, you exhaust all that, then they will be saying that, remember 2 months ago, you shouted at an officer. That is also triggering your risk factors, which means that you could actually demonstrate violence, a violent act. Everybody shouts now and again. People do get frustrated sometimes. I haven't hit nobody. I haven't damaged any property. Okay, I raised my voice a bit. Yeah, but then you've lost out again. I can give you a prime example, so that viewers are aware of what actually goes on. So I was in Brixton. I was conversing with an SO.
Security officer?
No, this an SO, senior officer.
Senior officer, okay.
Senior officer.
Yeah.
So I forgot what the matter was, but I was conversing with him. So he's comfortable with me. So we're sitting down conversing. So another officer gets involved. Oh no, it's like that. So I said, with all due respect, I said, he's your superior. I think he's capable enough of answering my question. That's what I said, because I'm talking to, you don't like if I interrupt you if you're talking to another resident. You say, what are you getting involved for? So that's all I said. I heard another officer behind me, watch your mouth. So obviously, I said, what did you say? Then he's moving his keys to his side, so like he's ready to pounce. So I took my position. So when I say I took my position, I made sure that my back wasn't turned to him now, because obviously his mindset is now that he wants to pounce on me. He wants to jump on me for whatever kind of apparent. So yes, I'm not gonna lie to you. It got me kind of frustrated. So what I said to him was, I said something like, briefly, like, think carefully before your next decision. This, something like that. That cost me my parole.
Just those words. It didn't end in altercation or anything like that.
Nothing
words.
at all. That was it. That cost me my parole. So this is the magnitude of what you're dealing with. And a lot of people don't understand this. The psychologists, they played around with it, they twisted it. They said that, yeah, but you have to understand with your reputation, what did you mean? You've damaged and injured so many officers. The officer was scared after that. He was scared for his safety. And I'm just thinking, but why would he move his keys for? When I was talking to, I said, your senior officer was comfortable. I was discussing the situation with him. I said, this other officer got involved. I said that your colleague is your senior. He has the capabilities. I'm talking to him directly. You lot can't help me with the matter. That's why I'm coming to your senior officer. I heard somebody behind telling me to watch my mouth. For me, that's kind of threatening. So what do you mean, watch my mouth? And then you're moving your keys, you're shifting. So I understood that because obviously I've been privy to these from before, so I know exactly what your next move is going to be.
And it's just talking about, you know, the system and some tactics, and there's actually 2 points on this question actually, but you know, talk about being targeted, right? And an incident which actually I believe even made the papers in regards to what they deemed to be a religious war in the prison, where between the Muslims and the whites in prison, and actually there was a situation where you was targeted in that whole incident. For those that may not be aware of the incident I'm talking about, can you explain the incident and also as well explain, I suppose, how you were targeted, how they tried to target you, that because it's just interesting to talk about that in its totality.
No, definitely. So there was a what tended to happen, I think it really started to, I think after the Twin Towers, there was this kind of backlash against my faith. But I think what really I would probably say increased the hostility as well was, I think it was the 7-7, so the buses and so forth. So you had a group of Caucasian guys as well, residents that were upset. Fair enough, you're upset. Everyone's upset. It could be your mother, it could be your people are upset. I understand that. But they felt that it was for them it was justifiable for them now to start targeting any Muslims. And the thing, because I was always a person as well that had always a sense of justice, that you don't have the same energy. Look, the IRA was doing this. I was in prison with them. So the incident where they planted, and these are military trained individuals. Why aren't you showing the same level of energy to them? That was my bone of contentions. And there was just a lot of strange things that were happening. For example, as well, especially in high security as well, it's very secure. So before you go off the wings, they would wand you down and so forth, give you a full body rub, wand you down. You're not getting anything off the wing. But then all of a sudden, these I wouldn't even like to use the terminology of this Caucasians, because there was a mixture. Let's put it EDL supporters, if you call it that way. They were coming off with like big knives. How are you coming off the wing with massive knives when basically everybody searched? So that's what's actually happening now. So the officer has stopped becoming a civilian, and now you've become a criminal, because now you're allowing these individuals to carry these types of, equipment, these knives. So you're hoping that something's going to happen. And then so it was kind of like it was like back and forth. But there was a group of, at the time when I was at this particular, I can talk about this now because this officer was actually fired. Was actually sacked, and he's suing the prison system. There was a group of them, and they used to go around especially harassing a lot of just black and Muslim, you know, we know that there is black in the Islamic beliefs as well. We know this, but I'm saying that separate from that, if you're a minority, this officer would just target you. So I don't know what happened, but an incident occurred and it spilled out on the landing. I came along and I saw the situation, and it was just like a George Floyd moment. That's the way I can describe it. And nobody's going to care. You're not going to have this media. You're not going to have this public outcry because, you know, we're pariahs of society. We're the low of the low. So no one's going to really care. They're just going to put down violent man, deserve what he got. That was the end of. But I can see that they had him under control, but he's choking. You can hear the wheezing. And as what I said before, I do jiu-jitsu. I understand that when somebody's being choked. So I protested loudly. By that, I was accused of injuring this officer and a few others. I was then taken, let's fast forward, I was then taken to the SEG. After about 2 weeks, what was very strange, they then released me and put me back onto the wings. It's a criminal charge now, so it's conflict of interest. They need to move me out of there. So everybody was thinking, they're going to sit you up. That's the only way we can describe it. Be careful. And now I know why. Now the massive incident that occurred, and it's funny, they kept this one silent because they like to, it was so big that usually they like to spread it out in the newspapers and everything, but because there was so much corruption involved in that, they kept it silent. So what actually happened was that after Juma service, an individual, he got his throat cut. Horrific. Totally understand that. He almost passed away. He collapsed. Now automatically they came for me. So again, initially the brothers stood in front, and that's what made it even kind of more worse as well. They stood in front of the officer thinking like, what are you targeting Patterson for? He's nowhere near he's next to the imam. Like, why are you doing this to him? So eventually, anyway, I said to the brothers, look, I don't want to get nobody in trouble. I just thought it was just me. So it took me to the SEG. But then they started to bring one after the other. More brothers were going to the SEG. The SEGs were filled up. The healthcare was filled up. They got the vans and they started to ship people out all different parts of the country, other high securities, saying that their involvements. Now, the individual, let's fast forward this. So now I've been admitted into the CSE. So now they're saying that I'm one of the influential individuals. I'm going on to the CSE Close Supervision Center. Now I'm going court case on 3 separate cases. One that occurred when I was actually on the CSE. Because as soon as I got there, the officers were hostile towards me because they thought I was a terrorist. I wasn't even in for that. But now my index offense don't even exist. Even myself, I'm starting to forget what I actually went prison for now. Because everything is just focused on Islam. So they're just asking me bare Islamic questions. Like, you'd actually think that I was actually in prison for terror-related incidences. And I weren't. And so it was very hard. It was very demoralizing. So what they actually, then I started to find out a few things. I found out about this individual that got his throat cut, that in Afghanistan, is either a family member or friend that is very high member in the kind of government that they're trying to shape in Afghanistan. So this is why they were so upset that this person got his throat cut. So what they said was that he was Northern Alliance, and Northern Alliance don't get along with the Taliban, but Northern Alliance is more for Western society.
Okay.
Do you get the drift?
Yeah.
So I didn't know this. So I just got caught up into this kind of political kind of chess. But it was actually so crazy as well, because even when it came time to giving evidence, there was officers that were saying that they knew me very well. And they described me as being Asian. Then, and guess what? A person actually put their hands up to it and said, I done it. And he was of the description what they described. And you know what? They still dismissed him.
All because they wanted you to
Just
take
wanted
the
me, yeah. Not only that as well, once the judge said, what is all this rubbish, throughout the first case, they appealed it, took me to the appeal courts, the Crown Prosecution Service and the prison system, and got it overturned, and I had to go back and fight the case again. I was going back and forth 3 times. I had to fight the case. If I was found guilty, I wouldn't be here sitting down talking to you now. Wow. So this is what was actually happening. This is what I was actually encountering at the same time with all these other things that were going on. Me being in solitary confinement, me being away for the first 2 years on my solitary confinement as well. That they basically said that they lost my visitations. So I had to go through the whole rigmarole again. And so being an ACAT, that means the police have to come to your house. They have to, get the details of your family and so forth. They have to process it from the police and then send it to the prison. So I didn't get a visit for the first 2 years, which is very critical, especially when you're in solitary confinement. You just want to hear a friendly voice or see a friendly voice, friendly face.
Of course.
They basically denied me all access. So I totally felt alone.
I'm going to touch on, we're going to go into solitary confinement, but just going back to that incident, you was found not guilty in the end.
Yes.
You was found not guilty.
Yes, I was found not guilty.
But I know, conversing with you previously, there was one brother, Abdul Rahim, also known as Chaos, who really helped you.
That's correct.
And there was other brothers as well. But
101%.
I think it's important to recognize that brother because he was brave in terms of helping you in that situation.
Of course. And do you know what? It's a testament to that brother as well. A lot of people say that, yeah, I would have done this, but you can only tell whether once you're confronted with that situation. There was a lot of things that were going behind the scenes. Like, for example, I had over 109 witnesses. They done everything. They were saying to individuals that, look, we'll take you off the book. If you just don't testify for Patterson, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. And these brothers, especially Chaos, they were brave, they were strong. And they said, no, we're not doing that. And they suffered the backlash of this. And remember, they already disliked some of these brothers already. So they've been going through their own trials and tribulations. And we have to spare them a thought as well.
For sure. Because
it's very hard and demoralizing, and they're still going through a lot of difficulties. And it's just unfair. How can a person... So, adjudication. Adjudication is a disciplinary procedure. Now, with Chaos, he hasn't been adjudicated since 2006. But he's been on the units and SEGs up till now, 2024 we're in. Who's helping him? How is this right? How can we justify that? Keeping a man in those kind of conditions. 2006, so even on their paperwork, he's classified as a well-behaved prisoner. He's not had no disciplinary actions. There's nothing been proven against him. But then you're taking it to a SEG, and then you would pose the question. I know he's feeling you. Pose the question, say like, why am I here? And they'll say that, well, it's intel. We can't tell you. Where's your accountability? Another thing that individuals have to also understand as well with the parole hearing, it was not over. Imagine that I was found not guilty for this. Now, it doesn't mean anything on regards to parole. Parole make their own decisions. So here's what's happened. I'm in a parole hearing. They start discussing this incident. Now, they've got a system in place. It's called probability. So what that actually means is that, yeah, you may have been found guilty, not guilty in the courts of law, but we still think that you've done it.
And they can base that off of what? Just that's their thinking.
The testament of the officers.
Wow.
Imagine that. A court of law. You actually took me outside. I was fighting for my life. And now you're saying I was found not guilty, so ain't I innocent? You're still saying that, no, you're not. Because we believe you still done it. And they can knock you back from that. So people need to be aware of this. It's not so plain sailing. What you're seeing, oh look, they're just coming out doing this. Yeah, for some people, but not for us. I tell you that now. Of course. You're lost for words. I can see that.
Yeah, I'm lost for words.
Probability.
Yeah.
So you're trying to say what? Was the judge incompetent? Are you trying to say that the judge is so useless that now you've taken the law into your own hands? So these are the things that we're encountering.
Well, man, I said, man, that brother helped you out, man. So I said, we'll shine light on his situation.
It needs to be.
It needs to be. And all the other brothers that are in that situation as
100%.
well, man. As I said, these are the tactics that we're talking about. And
Gary Nelson,
yeah,
it needs to as well.
Yeah.
100%. Ezra Taylor, it needs to. This is totally unacceptable. And many more.
So yeah, bro, man. Not to labour on the point of prison, because as I said, we're positive people and we want to look forward. But solitary confinement is the last thing I want to touch on in terms of your time at prison. You was in solitary confinement for 7 years.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
For those that may not be familiar with what solitary confinement means, please explain the conditions you was in.
Yeah, so there's different kind of disciplinary actions that sometimes the prison authority actually implements. So let's say there's a fight on a wing and sometimes you're in front of the governor. He may say that you may have to do 7 or 6 days, or some people's day like 21 days, 14 days down the seg. So the seg is a place that you're isolated from the rest of the prisoners. You're in isolation. Or there might be another case where you have an incident with an officer, or it's as serious as being investigated by the police, where they may do good order and discipline, GOAD, which that means you can spend longer. So some people will spend like 6 months, 7 months in the seg, and so forth. Even more, 1 year, year and a half, especially being long-termers. But then you have what is called the CSC, the Close Supervision Center. So if you've heard of a prisoner by the name of Charles Bronson,
Yes.
that's what I was on. So the CSC is less than 1% of prisoners would ever experience that. And it's a system that is in place that houses what they believe the very worst in the whole entire country of prisoners. You roughly have about probably 50 or less than 50 spread it out across the whole high security estate, like in segs or units.
Right.
It all depends on regards to your unlock level. So what initially happened, even in my case, so when they said they were admitting me into the CSC, at first they make reports. That reports will probably it took me about 7.5 months. So I was down their seg for 7.5 months.
Isolated from everyone.
Yeah.
7.5
months.
Wow.
Then eventually they will receive confirmation from, at first the mothership was Wood Hill, saying that we agree with this assessment, and so now he will go to further assessment at Wood Hill, which is that's their unit where they assess you whether you're going to be staying or you can go back onto general population. So I arrived, but the thing was, I was on a 7-man unlock, full PPE, with also a dog handler and double ratchet, so double handcuffed and handcuffed to.
So sorry to cut you off. Let's not skirt over that point, right? Because it's almost like you're inhumane at that point. So you've got 7 people. So when you say seven officers
on full PPE.
So they've got the shields,
protective.
They've got the batons, they've got the protective, almost like riot gear.
That's right,
riot gear, right? And then when you say you was double handcuffed,
yeah,
as in both your hands,
both my hands, and then linked to an officer.
And also as well, they had dog.
They had the dog.
They had the dog.
Yeah, they had the dog there. Yeah.
And that scenario in terms of that would happen wherever you would go. That would have to be the way you
100%.
You would need to move.
If I need to use the phone, if I need to use the shower, it has to go through that process.
Wow.
with they said they didn't trust me. So because they didn't trust me as well, that initially I had to because what they tend to do when they come in, they tend to give you orders, directions. So they will open up your flap, and then you would have somebody that will give you the commands. So they'll say, Mr. Patterson, could you go to the end of your cell, face the windows, place your hands on your head, interlock your fingers, and then with my command, the door's gonna open slowly. With my command, you slowly walk to us. Any sudden movements, you'll be taken down. But in my case, because they didn't trust me initially, I had to sit on the floor and interlock my fingers. Then they will come in with the shields, you can hear them, and then they will handcuff me and take me to wherever I needed to be. These officers were more hardened and they were tough and they were good at what they'd done, because obviously they're trained to engage with you, let's say. So these are like the SAS of the prison officers. So they are tough, they are trained, and they're very fit. And yeah, this with me, because there's also levels to this as well, in the sense of I was on a 7-man unlock, full PPE, but there was also some other constraints, let's say. Initially I wasn't allowed to have my toothbrush in there. I wasn't allowed to have trainers. They would also give you clothing which was sometimes 2 sizes smaller. And once I spoke to another professional, and he said that they do this in military prisons, it knocks your confidence. So you can see that you're more kind of self-conscious. And this is how they like to do. So all these things were actually happening. And then eventually you start earning, then eventually you get a television, you get all these types of privileges. But initially, it's very... I remember there was one place that I was up in North, and they gave me one blanket and it was snowing. It was so cold. I'll never forget this. The blanket was just, I just had one blanket, that's it. I had no undercover, I had nothing, and I was just laying there. And I was thinking, you know what? They're going to try to, I actually thought I was going to die in prison. And I remember once having a conversation to my mum. And my mum was tearful. And I was saying to my mum, if I die as well, could you make sure that I have an Islamic burial? I said, could you make sure that I just want a simple funeral, and I want to be obviously a white camise. And my mom said, what are you talking about? I said, you know what, I just don't trust where this is going. There's a lot of hostility right now, and I just feel that they're waiting for the opportunity, and then they can suffocate me, they can do something to me, and then basically they can justify it. And I said, Mum, as much as I still want time on this earth, but I'm ready to meet my Lord if it comes to that. And I remember my mum was like saying, why are you talking like this for? And she was really upset. And that's the stage that they got me to, because they were doing a lot of things. And there was one scene as well, that there was a nice lady, prison guard. She was a Christian, she believed in the word of God. And so there was some good officers, and I'm going to mention this as well. We're not just going to be one-sided.
Of course.
And she whispered through the door. She said, look, they've got the officers on. They're looking to set you up. You're gonna come out, and this particular officer, I know we can't name names, this particular officer is going to try to wind you up. Do not go for the bait, because there's a lot of officers waiting around the corner. So I said, okay. So when they opened me up, I already knew. So it was there, my face, wine, you saying that, yeah, I'll give it to you, Patterson, but we're going to break you. But I understood now, which I didn't understand at the time. What he meant was, when he said he was going to break me, they knew that physically, no. But they want to break me mentally, so I can go back out into society as a broken man and just complete the cycle again, become a recidivist, repeat offender. So that's what he meant by breaking. Keeping me so angry that with that anger, go back out into my community and destroy my community. And so that's what his aims and objective was. And I refused to give it to him. So anyway, so he done this. I ignored them. They were upset because obviously their plan failed. So what they also done was, now they said, we've received information that you're influencing other guys on the yard. Because what tends to happen is, well, the yards are all neighbouring each other, so you always look forward to going out and exercise, just so that you can
just seeing other people,
you know, just to speak to somebody and so forth. They said you got too much, so what they will do is they will, for a while, they let me go out on the yard by myself, like not having no neighbours on the other yard. I'll be just totally by myself. And then eventually, there were some officers who were thinking like, what's going on here? This is a bit unfair. Then they said that I was conditioning their officers as well. So then what they would do is they would assign 2 officers. So at no time can I, even though I was caged and it was secure, at no time can just a single officer. Now there has to be 2. Because they believed that I was influencing their officers. Because some officers had compassion and they were saying that, look, this is unfair.
Yeah.
Why is he being treated in this way?
Man. And just, so how long would you allow, like you talked about, you know, going out for exercise, going out in the yard. How long would you allow out of your cell? An hour?
It depends on what environment that you landed on. Some will give you half an hour and some will give you an hour. It just all depends.
And then for the other, let's say 24 hours and 23 hours, you're in your cell.
Yeah, that's it. You don't do that. You're CSC. You're dangerous.
Wow.
And that's it. And depending on what establishment you land on will determine on what their rules and regulations are. For example, there were some places as well that I could only have a shower 3 times a week. Or there was others that you had to make a decision whether you take a shower or you go and exercise. Obviously, I'm going to take a shower. So there was different concepts, or using the phone and so forth.
Mentally, bro, man, like, because and excuse the trigger warning, but a lot of people in your position would have broke mentally, and unfortunately, in the prison system, again, trigger warning, a lot of people commit suicide. And
I've been next door to some of my companions and they've taken their lives.
Really?
Yeah, taken their lives. And they used to, sometimes the officers used to say, like, you know, another one bites the dust.